Good afternoon, guys. Hello, everyone. My name is Elba Vidales, and I'm one of the education coordinators here in education. So here you see my picture, my beautiful picture. Ha ha ha. I didn't put my camera on because I think that if I put my camera on, I think I'm going to be more nervous than I am already. But so you just get to see my picture at the very beginning, but I think that's enough. Hope you had a relaxing break together with your loved ones. We are starting the new year, and there are a few procedures that have changed and some new things that are being implemented. I ask you to please pay close attention so that you may be well informed on what's coming up. There's a lot of new stuff. Some stuff have remained the same, but there's some stuff that has changed. And so it's important for you to pay close attention and make sure that you kind of understand all the procedures and everything that is being implemented. The training for today is observation and assessment to lead school readiness goals. And but it does contain a lot of the required documentation. We will talk about the ELOF, we will talk about the graphs, the end of the year results, we'll talk about resources, and there's a lot to talk about here. So hopefully you won't get too bored, and I apologize in advance if I made a mistake somewhere, or it's kind of hard to record here in the office because you have to kind of use your inside voice and not too loud because everybody can hear you, and at the same time the phones are ringing at the same time, so it's a challenge, but I'm enjoying doing it, and I hope you really enjoy the training. And if there's any questions at the end of the training, when we kind of meet up again, because after you finish the training and you finish your quiz, we'll kind of meet up again and we'll kind of discuss the quiz, make sure that you get all the answers right. And if you have any questions, anything that was not clear, anything that was not self-explanatory, let me know and we'll go ahead and clear it up. So I leave you with this training, and hope to see you soon. Thank you, guys. Bye. Let's start off with a little pre-test. How much do you remember about conferences? What about home visits? How much do you remember about assessments? Screenings? How much do you remember about the school readiness goals? Do we have any? How much do you remember about the ELOF? Do you remember what it stands for? There are many things we must continue to remember year after year. You may think, here she goes again. And you're right, here I go again. Here I go again because it is important for you to be informed about policy changes, procedures, and new developments. With Head Start, there are always new things developing. So just enlighten me and pay close attention to this presentation. I will try my best to cover everything you must know to start off the new year. Well, maybe not everything, but a big portion of it. The objectives for today for you are is for you to gain understanding of mandated requirements. It's not just because Head Start wants it or because ELBA wants it or education wants it. It's because they're mandated requirements. That means that they're coming from the Head Start regional office. These are mandated requirements that we must comply with. To be able to analyze data to make data-driven decisions. To be able to read the data that is provided for you so that you are able to make decisions based on the data provided. To be informed on the screening assessment procedures. There are some procedures that have changed. They're new, and it's important for you to know exactly what to do when it comes to submitting or sharing with a parent. Be informed of the recommended school readiness goals. Um, very carefully, it says recommended because there has been some recommendations done, and we will be talking about that. And most of all, to become familiarized with the alignments among the school readiness goals and the Head Start outcomes. Our agenda for today is review mandated requirements. All the requirements that are mandated by the Head Start office, all the mandates that are required by the state, all the mandates that are required by the districts, all of the mandated requirements. Review screenings and assessment procedures, everything that has to do with the screenings and the assessments as far as submitting them, completing them, and sharing with the parents. Review required documentation. Review school readiness goals and recommendations. And most of all, review the end of the year assessment results. Our mandated documentation consists of the early behavior checklist that is done 3 times per year, the lab screening for Head Start children, initial parent-staff conference, the lab BK assessment that is done at the beginning, at the mid, and at the end of the year, our first home visit, transition conference, second home visit, final parent-staff conference, portfolios, journals, and homework folders, and the ASQ screening for the early Head Start children and for the Head Start children that have failed the LAPD screen. So what's new? What's new is a language assessment survey. Teachers are no longer to submit forms to education. However, you must continue to complete child's language information. We will contact you to ask for child's language so that the child will be coded correctly in Ready Learner. If child is Spanish, then a dual language observation is required at the end of the LAPDK. So, for the language assessment survey, you will continue to complete it 3 times a year, just like you normally did last year. The family service worker is to complete the one on the top, and you are to complete the one on the bottom. Okay, the only difference is that you don't have to submit these forms to us anymore. Remember, you were submitting them together with a behavior checklist, so you no longer have to do that. But you do have to complete it so you can go ahead and file it in the child's folder under the Education tab. Again, you are no longer to submit forms to education, but you must continue to file, you must continue to complete as you did last year. Thank you. The Early Learning Behavior Checklist. The behavior checklist will continue to be completed 3 times. The form is to be sent in individually so that we are able to upload in Child Plus. You will continue to do this just like you did last year. You'll continue to complete 3 times a year, and you are to email them to us like you normally did last year. We do ask you to submit them individually so that we are able to upload into Child Plus. What was happening last year was that, some of you would submit all of them together for the whole classroom, and then when we would receive them, we would have to separate and make each file for each form. So that was taking a lot of time. It was very time consuming. And we didn't really return them, but for next year we will be returning forms that are not submitted individually. So we ask you, please submit them individually to make it easier for us. If you do not have access to Ready Learner, please notify us by email, phone, cell, hello sign, or Teams. Lines of open communication are important to keep our data updated. www.onlinelab.net is a website where you log in to Ready Learner to conduct assessments and lab screens. If by any chance you do not have access to Ready Learner because you have forgotten your password and you're not being able to log in, then you are to call 1-888-808-2366, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. This is the only time that you would be calling Ready Learner if you have forgotten your password. Unfortunately, I'm able to help you with your username, but with a password, if you forgot your password, they are the only ones that can help you to recover your password. So please, guys, do not forget your password. Like I said, your username, I'm able to access it for you, but the password, if you forget your password, then you're on your own. Screenings. Developmental screening is a process involving partnerships with parents to identify concerns about a child's development. In collaboration with a child's parent and with parental consent, a program must complete or obtain a current developmental screening to identify concerns regarding a child's developmental, behavioral, motor, language, social, cognitive, and emotional skills within 45 days of when the child first attends a program. When a child first attends Head Start, you have 45 calendar days to complete the developmental screening. However, for us, we would like to request that you complete your developmental screening within the first 15 days of enrollment. The reason for this is that sometimes, children enroll and then you let it go and you let it go and 2 or 3 weeks go by and then the child drops. And then there's no way that we can obtain a developmental screening for that child. So we are asking that you please, when a child first enrolls at the center, we give you 15 days to complete that developmental screening to ensure that that child will get a developmental screening just in case that he drops. Like I said, once he drops, it's very difficult to get a developmental screening done on him. So the sooner that we can do it, the better. Now, you don't have to wait the 15 days to do it. You may do it on the first week that he's there if you feel that the child is comfortable in that environment, and then go ahead and complete the screening. It doesn't have a time frame as to when you need to start doing it. Okay, we do have a time frame that it has to be done within the first 45 calendar days, but if you want to do it as soon as the child enrolls at the center, you are welcome to do that as well. Our screening is called the LAB-D, the Learning Accomplishment Profile Diagnostic, a systemic method for observing individual development of children functioning in the 30 to 72 months of age. It measures 4 domains: gross motor skills, fine motor skills, language skills, and cognitive skills. This LAB-D screening may be administered in English or in Spanish. These are samples of the 3- and 4-year-old screens. You are welcome to complete on paper, but you must enter final results on the website. Screening and assessments will continue to be done on the Ready Learner website, www.onlinelab.net. Here is a 3-year-old lab screen, and here is a copy of the 4-year-old lab screen. So what else is new? No more LAB-D rescreens. When a child fails the first screen, education staff will email Disabilities, Ms. Carmen Reyes, with child's name and screening information. Then Disabilities in turn will recommend an ASQ screening to be done. So let me go ahead and go back. What is new? There are no more LAB-D rescreens. Remember, guys, the rescreens that were done after the child fails the first time, you were to rescreen them again after the 2 weeks. Well, no more. No more LAB-D rescreens. The child fails the first time, then we education staff will contact disabilities. Then they will go ahead and turn around and speak to you, and you will be conducting an ASQ screening. So that is a new procedure. That is a new step, okay? No more Lab D rescreens. Here is a backpack for the Lab D screens. This is all the material that is needed to complete your screenings. If by any chance you do not have a screening backpack, please let us know, or if you are able to share with another teacher at your center, we welcome you to do that. But if there is no Lab D screenings at your center, please let us know. The ASQ questionnaire. The Ages and Stages questionnaires is the third edition, is the easiest, most accurate, and most cost-effective way to pinpoint delays early and celebrate children's milestones. ASQ-3 screens children between 1 month and 5.5 years, without any gaps between the questionnaire age intervals. What is ASQ? It is used to accurately identify children who may be at risk for developmental delays. It is designed to encourage parent involvement in education. Low cost, it's reliable and rigorously tested. And it also offers online questionnaire completion and online data management systems. In early Head Start, an ASQ screening is done on all children. Screenings are done by age, and depending on the age of the child, an ASQ screen is used. Early Head Start teachers are currently using the ASQ and will continue to do so for the new school year. ASQ training will be scheduled by disabilities for all Head Start teachers. For Head Start teachers, the ASQ screening will be conducted only on children that have failed the Lab D screen. Assessments. A program must conduct standardized and structural assessments, which may be observation-based or direct, for each child that provide ongoing information to evaluate the child's developmental level and progress and outcomes aligned to the goals described in the Head Start Learning Child Outcomes Framework, ages birth to 5. Assessments must be valid and reliable for the population and purpose for which they will be used, including by being conducted by qualified and trained personnel, and being age, developmentally, culturally, and linguistically appropriate and appropriate for children with disability as needed. The LAB-BK is a continuous developmental assessment from birth to kindergarten that is currently used in both Early Head Start and Head Start. It provides a systemic method for observing the skill development of any child functioning in the birth to 72-month age range, including children with special needs. The LAB-BK contains a standardized set of materials necessary to facilitate administration of the tool. The LAB-BK observes the following 8 domains: gross motor, fine motor, pre-writing, cognitive, language, social emotional, and the executive function that is used for the 3-year-olds, the dual language learners, and the self-help development. Here is a preview of the LAB-BK assessment. The Lab BK that is currently in use and will continue to be used for the new school year. The executive function is a new function in the Lab BK assessment. This executive function is intended for the 3-year-olds. However, if you would like to conduct them in the 4-year-olds, you are more than welcome to do. The executive function consists of how these children manage their time, how they organize their thoughts and materials, how they pay attention, how they plan and prioritize, and how they get their task initiated. This is a very important function that is also used for disabilities and Dr. Lita as well. So please remember to conduct this domain, to complete this domain while you're doing the Lab BK assessment, especially for the 3-year-olds. But like I said, you're more than welcome to conduct it in the 4-year-olds if you wish. So what's new? The Lab D screens and the Lab BK assessments will now be mailed out to the teacher. No more printing of assessments. Teacher may print out a copy for parents upon their request. So assessments will now be mailed out to the teacher. You know how we used to send you all the assessments in a packet? Okay, well, we're no longer be doing that. We're going to mail them out to you. Now, when you, the teacher, meet with a parent to discuss the assessment results, you may print out a copy for the parents upon the request. You are allowed to do that. Copies of the assessments are uploaded and archived in the Child Plus for each child's personal record. So in case that you ever need one, you also may find it in Child Plus. But again, what's new? Assessments will now be mailed out to the teacher. So more importantly, guys, you really need to check your emails. Always make sure that, that you check it every day to see what else we're mailing out to you. Let's move on to conferences and home visits. Teachers hold parent conferences as needed, but no less than 2 times per program year, to enhance the knowledge and understanding of both staff and parents of the child's education and developmental progress and activities in the program. Teachers conduct at least 2 home visits per program year for each family to engage the parents in the child's learning and development, except that such visits may take place at a program site or another safe location that affords privacy at the parent's request, or if a visit to the home presents significant safety hazards for staff. So remember, teachers, home visits are to be conducted at home, not unless that the home presents significant safety hazards for you, or that the parent refuses to invite you to their home, and then they may take place at a program site or another safe location that affords privacy for them and at their request. The first one is the initial parent-staff conference. This staff conference is conducted after you have completed the Lab D screens and the ASQ screenings. During an initial conference, teachers and parents share the child's screening results. Teachers also introduce and familiarize parents on the school readiness goals and how they will assist you during the year. Parents share information on the child's home language, interest, learning styles, and temperaments as well. Here is a sample of the initial parent-staff conference. It's very important that you complete every little section of this form, starting with the name of the child, if the child is receiving any type of special needs services, the name of the parent, the date, and if the child has an IEP. Every single question on this form needs to be completed. You may start off with a number 1, which is your child receiving any special services, all the way through number 9. Okay, number 7, this is where you may write in the screening results and your plans to follow up. Okay, number 8 is for teachers to introduce and provide a copy of the school readiness goals and what the parent plans to work on. Number 9 is very important that you get feedback from the parents. So here you may ask the parents if they have any questions, any concerns, anything that they're requesting from you. You may go ahead and write it here. Make sure that you obtain the parent signature. You sign as well, and make sure that the parent gets a copy of it. The next conference is a second parent-staff transition conference. During a transition conference, teachers and parents share and discuss information that will prepare parents and their children into the next transitional school setting. Parents at this time may share their experience with the program, their child's experience in the classroom, and may discuss their experience working on activities for the goals that were introduced to them during the initial conference. Here is a sample of the second parent-staff transition conference. You have 8 questions where you are to ask the parent how the program has helped them to transition into Head Start or the early Head Start, what activities your child has been able to participate in, what has the child learned, and introducing them to the new setting in 6 months. This transition conference is done in December, in the month of December, for all children, regardless of when they entered. The final parent-staff conference is where teachers and parents share the learning accomplishments and services provided during the school year. Teachers and parents discuss their engagement with the school readiness goals. Teachers share at the end of the year assessment results and plan together on how they may continue to support their child's learning. The final parent-staff conference has 8 questions as well. This is where you document the results of the end of the year assessment and how did the program engage the parents and the school readiness goals, the teacher activities that were implemented in the classroom, and asking the parents what their opinion is towards the services they have received during the year. And it's very, very important for you to complete number 7. And this is for parent questions and comments. We welcome parents' feedback and their recommendations, so please make sure that you don't leave it blank. And number 8 is for you, teachers, to comment and to make any type of recommendations for the parents, during the summer or for the next school year. Home visits. During home visits, teachers and parents partner up and discuss child's assessment results. Every domain is discussed and carefully reviewed. Together, they create an individualized plan based on emerging skills and express the importance of parent engagement in supporting their child's learning. On the first home visit form, you have 11 questions that are very important for you to complete. Every single question must be completed and filled in, and you will be discussing the assessment results. So trust me, you will have enough information to fill this in. Make sure, like I said, again, any type of recommendations done by the parent, any type of feedback, make sure that you fill it in. We will be looking at these home visits and conferences very closely and to see what your responses are here on the form. So please make sure that you complete every single question that is on this form. Make sure that you obtain the parent's signature. Make sure that you sign it as well. And make sure that everything on the top of the form is completed, the name of the child, the date, and the location where it was done. These forms will be audited during the review year. So this is a review year. So guys, please make sure that all of this form is completed and with intentional information coming from the assessment. So please make sure that every single question is filled in. This is a second education home visit. Here you only have 5 questions to complete. This is the progress report after you have conducted your mid-year assessment. So make sure that you obtain the parent signature and you sign it as well. Remember that all of these home visits and all of these conferences need to be filed in the child's folder for a future reference. So again, please make sure that all of these are completed. So another thing, what's new? Conferences and home visits are to be emailed to education just like the past year. Original forms must be filed in the child's folder under the Education tab. When sending the forms, please send them individually so that we are able to upload to Child Plus with no difficulties. I do have to say, guys, that conferences or home visits sent in all together will be sent back for resubmission. So what do we do with conferences and home visits? How do we send them to education? Conferences and home visits are scanned and emailed back to education after you have obtained parent signatures. How do we send them to education? They are sent individually so that we are able to upload to Child Plus with no difficulties. Conferences, home visits, or checklists sent in all together will be sent back. Let's look at some of our educational resources. Okay, on Teams, we have something new. Okay, in Teams, we have a folder that is called the Education Professional Learning Community folder. Here, you will find every form, lesson plan, theme activities, videos, songs, conferences, home visits, and everything that may be associated with education. And what you do here is that you go into your Teams, you click on Teams right here where you see the little arrow, and then on the far left column you see Education Professional Learning Community folder. Once you are on Teams, you click on Files. These are all the folders where you may find associated with education content area. Once you click the files, you will see all the files that we have provided for you. Like I said, you can find the curriculum, you can find the theme activities, you can find videos, you can find everything, or even copies of home visits and conferences. So everything that may be associated with education, you are able to find it here. Now let's go into children's folders. Portfolios. Portfolios are provided with a general plan. Each portfolio that is provided to you has a general plan, and each one is for the 3-year-olds and for the 4-year-olds. These portfolios are to include samples of children's artwork, writing samples, book reports, name writing, and anecdotal notes. Portfolios must be kept organized and up to date. They are given out to the parent at the end of the year. Remember, guys, portfolios are a reflection of your work. They tell a child's story. Let's make it a memorable one. So please, whenever you're keeping up with these portfolios, I know that you kind of designate the teacher or assistant to do them, but ultimately that is your responsibility. Okay, it's a teacher responsibility to make sure that these portfolios are completed and up to date. In each portfolio, you will see a general plan for the 4-year-olds. The 4-year-olds, they will be required to have a photograph of the child, a photograph of the family, art sample and self-portrait, name writing sample, inventive writing, parent and child book report, and anecdotal notes. For the 3-year-olds, it's basically the same thing, but if you notice, the only difference is that these samples are required on different months for each age group. So kind of look at closely what is needed for the 3-year-olds and then what kind of needed is for the 4-year-olds. But it's basically the same requirements for both age groups. It's just for the different months. Anecdotal notes for Head Start. Teachers are required to write a positive skill for each child for each month using the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, which is the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, which stands for ELOF. The anecdotal note is to include that the domain and the indicator, the skill number. Anecdotal notes are kept filed in child's portfolio. On the right hand side, you'll see a copy of the anecdotal notes. I'm not sure what color it's gonna be this year, but you may file it in the front of the portfolio or you may file it in the back of the portfolio. It's your preference, wherever you want to file it. As long as you file it in the children's portfolio and that you have an anecdotal note for each month. Again, please make sure that every anecdotal note is dated. I mean, we have already provided the month and the year for you, so just make sure that you put the date on it, okay? So please don't forget to put the date on these anecdotal notes. Refer back to your ELOF and make sure that the anecdotal note that you document, okay, comes from the ELOF. Write the skill number and write the description of what the anecdotal note is supposed to look like. Anecdotal notes for early Head Start. How to use portfolio checklist. Here is just a brief sample of the portfolio outline or the checklists that are for the ages 2 to 18 months. An individual portfolio will be kept for each child throughout the year. Activities, pictures, and anecdotal records will be compiled as part of the assessment tool to show a child's developmental growth from beginning to the end of the year. Teacher will write the child's initial and age in months. Infant portfolio outline checklist is divided into months from August to June. Teacher will be provided with a copy of infant portfolio outline checklist for 4 children. Teacher will use portfolio checklist as guide to know what activities need to be completed for special month. Homework folders. Folders are kept for every child enrolled. Folders are to be sent home every Monday and to be returned on Friday. Folders may include parent-child activities, school readiness activities, or any other individualized activity assigned to the child. Activities must be monitored ongoing for progress and completion. Keep activities short but intentional. Journals are very important for young children. They expose them to handling writing tools, opening books, moving from left to right, and also to process feelings, build writing skills, and communicate their ideas. Journals are worked on a weekly basis. 2 journals are required per week. Entries must be child's own work or creation. No dictation from the teacher. And please remember to date all entries. So let's review. Let's review everything that we have covered so far. Children's documentation. So you remember everything about children's documentation, the assessments, the lab screenings, the home visits, the conferences, how you're supposed to submit them, what we're going to be sending you copies of, obtaining parent signatures, teacher signatures, filing them in their folders. So that covers all of children's documentation. Lab screens. Remember lab screens? Lab screens, we are to do them for everybody that is enrolled. If a child fails the first time, stop right there with the lab screenings. We let disabilities know. Disabilities contacts you, and more than likely you're going to do an ASQ screening for those children that have failed the first time around. No more rescreenings to be done. Again, if a child fails the first time, you do nothing more. We let disabilities know. They contact you. You will be doing an ASQ screening on those children that have failed the first time. The Lab BK assessment. Like last year, you are to do it beginning, mid, and end of the year. Assessment results will be mailed out to you. No more printing of the assessments. They will be mailed out to you. The same thing for the lab screens. We will be mailing all the lab screens to you. No more printing out all these packets and sending them over to you. Everything will be mailed out to you. Teams. Remember the educational resource folder? You go on Teams, you go for the education resource folder, you will find all kinds of files. You'll be able to find lesson plans, conferences, home visits, videos, theme activities, cards, vocabulary words, everything that has to do with education. You'll be able to find it there. Even the minimum standards, copy of the minimum standards book, and you'll be able to print all of that out from there. Okay, so there's no more that, oh, well, I didn't have a conference, so I didn't do the conference because you never sent me enough conferences. Okay, you need a copy of the conference, go to the educational resource folder. You'll find it there. You need a copy of the home visit, go to the education resource folder, make a copy from there, and you'll be able to do your home visit from there. So no more about, I didn't have a copy of it. Everything is you're able to find it here on Teams. Children's portfolios. They are to kept organized neatly, nice and pretty, because remember, it's a reflection of your work. Okay, so make sure that they're up to date. We will be checking those portfolios very intensely this year. Remember, guys, this is a review year, so everything will be monitored very closely. We need to pass this test. They are going to be checking for portfolios. They're going to be checking for individualization, especially individualization on those lesson plans. Those lesson plans have to be completed. They have to be signed by the area manager. They have to be signed by the parent, and that individualization needs to be done. Homework folders for every child. They are to be sent out on Monday, be brought back on Friday. Encourage these parents to participate. Don't give them a lot of homework. Don't give them excessive homework that they're not going to want to do it. Activities need to be short but intentional, just so you can kind of encourage these parents to participate. Journals, they are to be worked on a weekly basis. Remember, it's their own creative writing. It's not about what you want them to do there in those journals. It's about what they want to do, what they want to write, what they want to draw, whatever they want to color. That's their work, not yours. And submission of forms. When you are submitting those conferences and those home visits to us, don't submit them all together. They will be sent back. They need to be sent in individually. Kind of makes it easy on us, guys. I know you might want to make us work harder, but it is very hard whenever you send them all together, and then we have to split them up. We have to create different files for each one. So it's very time consuming. It's bad enough as it is that we have to file all of these things into Child Plus, but then having to create files for each one when you send them in all together is very time consuming. So please help us in that, in submitting them individually. A lot of you teachers did an excellent job this year by submitting them individually. Thank you so much, because it made our life a lot easier. But for the ones that didn't, please kind of learn how to do it. Learn from other teachers that know how to do it, and learn from them, please. So what is ELOF? Can anybody remember what ELOF stands for? ELOF stands for Early Learning Outcomes Framework. Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. The Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, which is ages birth to 5, presents 5 broad areas of early learning. It is referred to as central domains. The framework is designed to show the continuum of learning for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. It is grounded in comprehensive research around what young children should know and be able to do during their early years. The Head Start program performance standards requires grantees to implement program and teaching practices that are aligned with the ELOF. Education managers can use the ELOF implementation toolkit to guide the alignment process and help their programs strengthen practices to promote children's development in all ELOF domains. So let's get a little preview on the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework.
children. We all love them. We're totally invested in their futures as lifelong learners and happy, healthy human beings. But managing everyday events and planning for their very distant futures can be a challenge. That's why there's the ELOF. That's right. It's the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. The ELOF is an easy-to-use guide that will help you identify developmental milestones to make sure the kids in your care are ready for kindergarten and everything after that. The ELOF focuses on age-appropriate expectations for birth to 5-year-olds, so you can plan experiences and activities that match a child's skills and abilities at any stage. It is a resource to be used with all children, including dual language learners or children with special needs. And it can be used in all settings, such as home-based, center-based, and family child care. Need to build language skills for a babbling baby? There's the ELOF for that. Baffled by the behavior of a testy toddler? There's the ELOF for that. Want to scaffold learning for a precocious preschooler? Yes, there's even the ELOF for that. The ELOF helps teachers, home visitors, and family child care providers identify the steps in a child's development, so you know where he's headed next. We know the challenges and pressures that come with supporting a child's development. Let us help enhance your practice and provide a path towards a child's success in school and life. With the ELOF, we're planning with the big picture in mind. Plan with us, and remember, there's the ELOF for that.
Also, there's an introduction to the ELOF to Go mobile app. Check this out.
Introducing the ELOF to Go app. It's a mobile solution for teachers who want to access and learn more about the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. The app provides on-the-go access to the ELOF goals for children and effective teaching practices in support of those goals. Navigate through the content by choosing age groups birth to 5. Take a quiz on domain-specific teaching practices. They're based on stories from the field. Designed to be used by teachers, family child care providers, and home visitors. Download for free via Google Play or the App Store.
Now let's look at the Texas pre-kindergarten guidelines. These guidelines were updated on 2015, so those are the most current ones. The Texas pre-kindergarten guidelines are based on current knowledge of theory and scientific research about how children develop and learn. They reflect the growing consensus among early childhood professional organizations that a greater emphasis be placed on young children's conceptual learning, acquisition of basic skills, and participation in meaningful, relevant learning experiences. The guidelines delineate the behaviors and the skills that children are to exhibit and achieve, as well as instructional strategies for teachers. They provide information on responsive teaching practices, the physical arrangement of a pre-kindergarten classroom, professional development as a key to high-quality pre-kindergarten programs, the involvement of families for better school readiness of children, strategies for bilingual instruction, considerations for children with special needs and disabilities, and methods of monitoring children's progress. The Texas guidelines also include the Texas infant, toddler, and 3-year-old learning. Little Texans, Big Futures includes guidance on what young children should know and be able to do at different points in their development. It also includes critical information to help parents and caregivers notice these milestones and respond with actions that support each child's development. What happens in the first years of life will have an impact on your child's future. You may want to take some time to read through these materials. They will give you powerful knowledge to support your child's development. Head Start programs must establish school readiness goals that are appropriate for the ages and development of enrolled children in the following domains: approaches to learning development, social and emotional development, language and literacy development, cognitive development, and physical development. For these reasons, we must ensure that our school readiness goals are aligned with the Early Learning Outcomes Framework, which is ELOF, the Pre-K Guidelines, the Texas Infant Toddler 3's Early Learning, and the LabBK assessment that is currently in use. Niños Inc. has established 5 school readiness goals as they ensure that children possess the skills, knowledge, and attitudes necessary for success in school and for later learning and life. Niños has established 5 school readiness goals. Number 1, children will understand and demonstrate healthy and safe habits. Number 2, children will engage in healthy relationships and interactions with others as they develop a healthy concept of their personal identity. Number 3, children will demonstrate interest, curiosity, persistence, and eagerness to learn. Number 4, children will develop their numerical knowledge and demonstrate their ability to retain by making connections between new and familiar experience. Number 5, children will develop their abilities in oral language and pre-literacy. Head Start defines school readiness as children possessing the skills, knowledge, and attitudes necessary for success in school and for later learning and life. The Head Start approach to school readiness means that children are ready for school, families are ready to support their children's learning, and schools are ready for children. Here is a brief process on how we determine the school readiness goals and their indicators. First, once the school readiness goals are established, Niños determines what skills are going to assist in obtaining the goals. Skills are taken directly from the child's assessment currently in place, which is a LabBK. Then, using the child's assessment, we aggregate and review data at the end of each program year. Children's Services staff meet with a committee of parents, teaching staff, and community partners to review the ongoing child assessment data collected to measure children's progress in supporting each of the school readiness goals and identifying which goals to keep, revise, and/or add. Based on the results, Children's Services Director and content area staff meet with the school readiness team committee, the board members, and the Building Bridges Committee members to establish new school readiness goals or to decide to keep the current goals in place. All new or revised school readiness goals must be approved by the Policy Council and the board members. Here are the school readiness goals that were in place for the 2020-2021 school year. They are all by age groups: 0 to 11 months, 12 to 23 months, 24 to 35, 3 and the 4-year-olds. For the 0 to 11 months, we have 6 indicators, and each indicator is for each domain. Approaches to learning is CG39. It comes directly from the LabBK assessment. Will be able to insert a round shape into form board. The social emotional, which is the SE16, will be able to imitate grown-up activities. Language, LN24, will be able to name one object. Literacy, LN23, will be able to point to pictures in a book. Cognition, CG40, will be able to hold 3 cubes. Perceptual, motor, and physical development, SH14 will begin to hold and drink from a cup with some spilling. The 12 to 23 months, the first domain is approaches to learning. First skill is CG65, will be able to understand two prepositions, example on, under. Social emotional, SE27, will be able to join two nursery rhymes and songs. Language, LN33, will be able to speak in two-word sentences. Literacy, LN38, will be able to point to 5 pictures when asked to do so. Cognition, CG70, will be able to repeat 2 digits. Perceptual, motor, and physical development will be able to squat, whole self, or verbalize toilet needs. The 24 to 35 months, the first domain is approaches to learning, CG85, will be able to add 2 parts to incomplete drawing of a person. Social emotional, SE28, will be able to tell their age. Language, LN48, will be able to tell their full name when asked. Literacy, CG86, will be able to point to small details in a picture. Cognition, CG87, will be able to name 8 pictures correctly. Physical development, SH40, will be able to undress completely without assistance. In the 3-year-olds, approaches to learning, LN87, will be able to tell opposites. Social emotional, SE51, will be able to tell their birth date, month, and the date. Language, as you can see here, we have 2 skills for language. First one is LN83, will be able to repeat 12-syllable sentence. The next one is the DE4, which is for the dual language learner. They will be able to name at least 1 picture in English. In literacy, we have 3 skills for that domain. The first skill is LN88, will be able to discriminate printed words. LN85 will be able to name printed letters in their own name. And for the dual language learners, the DR11 will be able to recognize a few printed words in English as English words, And the physical development, which is SH72, will be able to lace shoes, not tie them, but lace them. In the 4-year-old, the first domain is approaches to learning, CG148, will be able to tell number of halves in whole. Social emotional, SE54, will be able to tell their complete address, like their house number, the street name, the city, and the state. For the language here, we have 2 skills. LN99 will be able to rhyme words. And the DE6 is for the dual language learner that will be able to use individual English words to communicate wants or needs. On the literacy domain, we have 3 skills. First skill is LN100, will be able to tell beginning sounds. LN104 will be able to tell the names of 26 capital letters in their primary language. And for the dual language learner, the DL5, is to be able to show engagement in a recently read English story by talking about it or asking questions about it. Cognition, CG146, will be able to tell numbers that follow 8, 3, 6, and 9. And perceptual motor physical development, which is SH74, will be able to cut their food with a table knife or a fork. So these are the school readiness goals that were in place this past year, and they are by age group, and they will continue to be the next school readiness goals for next year. I will share with you what has changed, the only thing that has changed for next year, but for the most part, it's the same. They are going to be the same skills. So here are the results from the assessment, from the final assessments. And the first group is the infants from 0 to 11 months. If you can see here on the 6 domains for the infants, the first one is approaches to learning. we started off at 6% and we ended up at 67%. The social emotional development, we started off at 19% and we ended up at 71%. The language and communication, we started off at 8% and ended up at 62%. On the literacy, we started off at 9% and ended up at 76%. The cognition, we started off at 8% and ended up at 76%. The physical development, we started off at 14% and ended up at 81%. So as you can see, every single domain had progress. We had growth, so it looks good. Okay, not sure, I don't remember exactly how many skills we were able to meet, but I will share that in a little bit later. But as far as having growth, every single domain showed growth. On the 12 to 23 months, on the approaches to learning, we started off at 7% and ended up at 63%. On the social emotional development, we started off at 14%, ended up at 72%. On the language and communication, we started off at 21% and ended up at 58%. On the literacy, we started off at 14% and ended up at 66%. Cognition, we started off at 2%, ended up at 42%. And the physical development, we started off at 9% and ended up at 50%. So overall, in all the domains, in all the 6 domains here, we were able to show growth. There's only one, even though on the cognitive we did show growth, we're not over the 50% margin, but we did show growth. On the 24 to 35 months, from the 6 domains, starting with the approaches to learning, we started off at 19%, ended up at 71%. Social emotional, we started off at 23%, ended up at 69%. Language and communication, we started off at 38%, ended up at 73%. On the literacy, we started off at 25%, ended up at 77%. Cognition, we started off at 24%, ended up at 77%. Physical development, we started off at 18% and ended up at 70%. All of these domains, we showed growth, and they're all above the 50%, so which is great. So they did really, really well. For the 3-year-olds, they have 9 domains, so that means 9 skills. We start off with the approaches to learning. The beginning assessment, we started off at 3%, ended up at 52%. Social and emotional, we started off at 3%, ended up at 62%. The language and communication, we started off at 3%, ended up at 55%. The language and communication, which is for the dual language learners, they started off at 74%, ended up at 100%. So they did really, really well in that domain. The literacy, we started off at 2%, ended up at 51%. The next literacy domain, we started off at 3%, ended up at 56%. So we did really well there. We started off really, really low, but we did manage to go over the 50%. And this is for their printed letters in their own name. So that is really, really well. For the dual language, they started off with the 21%, ended up at 77%. Cognition, they started off at 5%, ended up at 62%. And the physical development started off at 2%, ended up at 48%. We didn't go over the 50% margin, but we did show growth anyway. What I did notice after analyzing all the data was that a lot of children were able to get to the skill before and the skill after, but not the skill that we were concentrating on. And in other words, not the focus one. And I did talk to several teachers, and what had happened was that they just didn't, how can I say this? They just didn't focus on the skill. They kind of left it for the parent to work on it, and they themselves did not focus on the skill, which is really a shame, because after looking at this assessment data, a lot of these children were able to get all the way to the skill that we were focusing on. They were able to do the skill before and the skill after, but not the skill that was the focus skill. So that was a real shame, because if the teachers would have concentrated on that focus skill, the child would have been able to master that skill. But and that did happen a lot throughout. I had contacted a few teachers about this situation, so I want to make it a point, guys, that for next year, we need to make sure that we focus on these skills. These school readiness skills are given to you at the beginning of the year for a reason, and they are so you can start working on them and get these parents to help you obtain these goals at the end of the year. So please, when you meet with them during the initial parent conference, share the school readiness goals, and see what school readiness goals they're going to be helping you with. So this was a very big issue this year after looking at these results, and it was really sad that some of these children were not able to master that skill just because we failed, to work on them, and not because they couldn't do it. Is because we failed to focus on these skills and to work with them on these skills. The 4-year-olds. Your final assessment results consist of the 9 domains. We'll start off with the approaches to learning. The approaches to learning, they started off at the 0% and ended up at 87%. Social and emotional, they started off at 0%, ending at 90%. Language and communication, they started off at 0%, ended up at 67%. The dual language learner that will be able to use individual English words, they started off at 60% and they ended up at 100%, which is an excellent score. The literacy 100 will be able to tell beginning sounds. They started off at 3%, ended up at 73%. The LN 104 that will be able to tell the names of 26 capital letters, 0%, and started off and ended up at 27%. The dual language learners that will show engagement in a recently read English story by talking about it or asking questions about it. They started off at 24%, ended up at 90%. Cognition will be able to tell numbers that follow 8, 3, 6, and 8. They started off at 0%, ended up at 60. And the physical, SH74, that will be able to cut food with a knife or with a fork. They start off at 0%, ended up at 100%, which was excellent. Now going back to the LN 104, we'll be able to tell names of 26 capital letters in their primary language. 27% was not very impressive. Actually, it was a little alarming, and that we only had 30 children that were enrolled. We only had two classrooms, And so 27% is not very impressive. However, I mean, it was a little alarming, to be honest. Not even the 50%. That only says that not even 50% of the children knew their letters in their primary language. Teachers, you have to remember, okay, all age groups are important. All of them are important, okay? But these are 4-year-olds. These 4-year-olds are going into the school district. They need to be school ready. Now, I don't know exactly what the motive was, to have gotten the 27%, but this is just kind of like a hit, it's kind of like to let us know that we need to start from the very beginning, guys. We need to start from the very beginning. I know that at the beginning assessment, the scores are going to be low. But then when the mid-year comes around and you still see that there's no improvement, and you have to be able to see right away that there's something not right. Okay, like for instance, this one, the beginning was 0%. By the mid-year, there was only 6%. Okay, so you have to notice these things and say, okay, what's going on? What is it that I have to do? Where are my children lacking? I mean, do I have to change up my strategies? Do I have to change my activities? You have to be able to catch it on time, not to wait for the last minute and say, well, I don't know what happened. You have to be looking at this data constantly. That's why we recommend, look at your assessments, look at your classroom grouping reports, do your individualization, because when you do your individualization, you can find out exactly what these kids are lacking. What were they able to accomplish and what were they still pending. So if you fail to do this individualization, you will also fail to see what their needs are. And I kind of focus on this particular skill because Miss Siri has really put a big emphasis on this skill. We have ordered plastic letters. We are running the alphabet arch in English and in Spanish. We are increasing the amount of activities, literacy activities for next year. Also for next year, we will be monitoring the individualization a lot closer. Okay, you would have to provide us with the activities that you're going to implement in the lesson plan and where in the lesson plan is it being implemented. Okay, we have always checked individualization. We have always checked that your lesson plan is done, and we do monitor, but for next year it's going to be closely monitored. And we've never asked you to provide activities, for what is being implemented in the classroom. But for next year, we are, especially when it has to do with the literacy part. Please, teachers, please look at this data very closely. It's not just to read it and put it aside or file it away. Look at the data. Look at where your children are. With that classroom report that we provide for you, or that you're able to print out on your own, you're able to tell exactly where every child is in your classroom. So don't wait until the last minute and try to do something about it when it's already too late. So again, when we send you these type of reports, is for you to really look at them closely. We provide the teacher tallies. The teacher tallies should also tell you, how many kids have been able to master a certain skill and how many kids are still not there yet. They're still emerging. So start working on them from day one. Look at the goals. Look at the skills that you're going to have to concentrate on. Get together with your parents and see where they're going to be able to help you out. Analyze it and plan. Make intentional planning for these children from day one. Do not wait for the last minute. There was a lot of things that I was able to see looking at the data. Like a lot of children were able to do a particular skill all the way up to the skill that we were focused on. They were able to do that skill and the skill after. But the skill that we were focusing on, they were not able to do it. I spoke to a few teachers, and unfortunately, they just told me, honestly, I didn't focus on it. I didn't really, yes, we went over it. Yes, I did touch up on it a couple of times, but I didn't focus on it. And that's a real shame because these kids could have mastered that skill. So I ask you, teachers, please read all the data that we send you. Look at these classroom reports. Learn how to read them and learn how to make intentional decisions. From the very beginning. Do not wait until the very end. Now, this first group is infants from 0 to 11 months. This is a graph where it shows you the ones that have the little star are the goals that we were able to meet. If you remember correctly from last year, we projected a certain type of growth that we said, during the year we expect 30% growth or 40% growth or 50% growth. So here I am providing by age group the graph that will show you the skills that we were able to meet those projected growths. On the 0 to 11, on the approaches to learning, the yearly growth was 61% and our projected growth was 40%. So we were way, way over. Social emotional, our yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 45%. There again, we met our goal. Language and communication, LN24, our yearly growth was 54% and our projected growth was 40%. So we met our goal there too. On the literacy, the LN23, our yearly growth was 67% and our projected growth was 55%. Way over, guys. Great job. Cognition, our yearly growth was 68% and our projected growth was 55%. Our physical development, our yearly growth was 67% and our projected growth was 60%. So by looking at this graph, you are able to see that all 6 domains were met. We projected one growth and you surpassed that by a long shot. So that is awesome. These are perfect scores. This is great efforts. We know that you teachers are doing an excellent job, and thank you for all your great efforts. And here we can plainly see, how much effort you put into these kids. So we thank you. We thank you again for meeting all our projected growth. Our mobile infants 12 to 23 months, our yearly growth is, from the 6 domains, we'll start off with the approaches to learning. Our yearly growth was 56% and our projected growth was 45%. Social emotional, our yearly growth was 58% and our projected growth was 50%. The language and communication, our yearly growth was 31% and our projected growth was 60%. Not so great, huh? And the literacy, LN38, our yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 55%. Our cognition, our yearly growth was 40% and our projected growth was 40%. Right on the money, guys, right on the line. And our physical development, we started off, our yearly growth was 41% and our projected growth was 50%. So you see here that out of the 6 domains, only 3 domains we were able to master our projected growth. The language and communication, we had projected 60%, but the yearly growth was very, very low, which was a 31%. And same thing with, we'll be able to point to 5 pictures when asked to do so. Our yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 55%. We only needed 3% more to master that skill. However, if you notice again, it's back to the literacy domain and the language and communication. So you are going to see a lot more literacy activities being implemented. Ms. Siri wants us to really focus on literacy this year, and with that in mind, we are here to help you as much as we can to help you plan for these literacy skills for these literacy activities, I'm sorry, and whatever we can do to help you. Um, just keep in mind that, you know, these skills, these activities will be closely monitored on the lesson plan and on the implementation of them. You know, your coaches will be right there, especially for early Head Start, that, you know, you will have your coaches go in at least 2 or 3 times a week. You know, you will have your coaches monitor this and be ready to show your coach, you know, to show them what kind of activities you're being implemented and where you're implementing them and with who. It has to show you on your individualization section of your lesson plan. So guys, be ready, okay? But overall, I mean, we did master three domains, which was great. So thank you for everything that you're doing. This age group, the toddlers 24 to 35 months, out of the 6 domains, 4 domains we were able to meet the projected growth. The first one is approaches to learning, CG 85. The yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 50. So we did meet our projected growth. The social emotional, our yearly growth was 46% and our projected growth was 40%. There again, we did meet our projected growth. The language and communication, they will be able to tell their full name when asked. The yearly growth was 35% and our projected growth was 50%. So there we did not meet our projected growth goal. In literacy, our yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 50%. So we did meet our goal there. Cognition, we'll be able to name 8 pictures correctly. Yearly growth was 53% and our projected growth was 60%. So unfortunately, we were not able to meet our projected growth for the year. And physical development, our yearly growth was 52% and our projected growth was 50%. So here we have 2 domains that we were not able to meet our projected growth, and one of them, like I said, one of them it has to do with literacy. So there again, we go back to literacy. So as you can see, the great focus is on literacy this year, like I've mentioned before, and I will continue to mention it. So you probably say, oh my God, Alba, you know, stop saying about literacy. But I just want you to know that this will be the focus for this year. So you will be seeing a lot of activities being implemented on these type of domains. The 3-year-olds. This is the graph for the yearly growth for the end of the year. Out of the 9 domains, there was only 2 domains that we were able to master the projected growth. Starting off with the approaches to learning. Our yearly growth was 49% and our projected growth was 60%. The social and emotional, the yearly growth was 59% and our projected growth was 65%. Language and communication, the yearly growth was 52% and the projected growth was 55%. Almost, but not quite. The language and communication for the dual learners will be able to name 1 picture in English. Our yearly growth was 26% and our projected growth was 40%. Literacy will be able to discriminate printed words. Our yearly growth was 49% and our projected growth was 60%. In literacy, LN85 will be able to name printed letters in their own name. Our yearly growth was 53% and our projected growth was 60%. Almost, but not quite. So there you go again, guys, you know, with the literacy part. So get ready. The DR11, the dual language learners, will be able to recognize a few printed words as English words. Our yearly growth was 56% and our projected growth was 40%. Cognition will be able to name the cause of 3 given events. Our yearly growth was 57% and our projected growth was 60%, almost. Our physical development, our yearly growth was 46%, and our projected growth was 40%. So that was one of the ones that we were able to master, our projected growth, out of the 9. So going back to the literacy ones, and I want to emphasize it because, it's very, very important that we focus on these skills from the very beginning of the school year. I'm going to give you an example on the SH72. Even though we kind of met our projected growth, but we could have even had a higher percentage, if we were to read this data correctly, or kind of like pay attention to the data that we're providing for you. On this particular skill, I had a classroom, and I believe she had like 7 or 8 children. I'm not quite sure. But the reason that I called her was because I looked at the assessment, and I noticed that on the assessment, all of her children, I mean all of her children, were able to get to SH71. All of them mastered it, all the way to SH71. But then SH72, none of them could do it. So I thought it was a little strange that none of them could do it. So I did call her up, and I asked her. And she was very brutally honest with me, but she was honest. And she told me that she had not focused on it. That she had at the beginning, that she started introducing the skill to the children, and that she did it once or twice during transitions, but that honestly she had just kind of forgotten about it and didn't touch base on them anymore. And I kind of knew because the data told me what had happened. When I see data like this, I know exactly what happened in the classroom. But it was important for me to call her up and to let her know, look, it's so sad that these kids were not able to do this particular skill when they got so close. And you could have had your whole classroom master this whole domain. But just because you failed to introduce the skill and to focus on it and to really emphasize on it during the year, these children were, they were left out. And that's really a shame. So I ask you, teachers, I ask you that whatever we provide for you, whatever data that we provide for you, classroom reports, group reports, assessment reports, teacher data, remember those teacher tallies, we give them to you for a reason. We give them to you so you can read them, plan for them, know where your children are, know what you got to do for the end of the year. You really have to pay attention to this data. Data, it projects, it projects what's going to happen at the end of the year. If you don't read it, and then you know exactly how it's going to look at the end of the year. So I ask you to please take some time and read it. Look at your classroom reports. Look at where your kids are at. Look at what they need, what that they have accomplished. Where is it that you're at, and where is it that you need to go? Because at the end of the year, the scores will reflect on your efforts. So keep in mind that these reports are shared with the policy council, with the board members, with the community, with all the collaboration partners that we have. So this is what our data looks like, and what we show is a reflection of your work and your efforts. So please, we make sure we try to provide as much as we can for you, so you are able to make this type of decisions that you need for your classroom. So I'm not going to get tired of telling you, please read your data, because your data is very important. The 4-year-olds end of the year yearly growth results are as follows. Out of the 9 domains, there was only 6 domains that we were able to meet the projected growth. Okay, so comparing this graph to the other one where we showed about the letters, I know that it didn't look too promising there, but we do want to let you know that there was growth in all the other domains. Approaches to learning, our yearly growth was 87% and our projected growth was 60%. So we had a tremendous amount of growth in that domain. On the social emotional, our yearly growth was 90% and our projected growth was 60%. So there again, our growth was great throughout the year. Language and communication, will be able to rhyme words. Our yearly growth was 67% and our projected growth was 60%. So there we did awesome there. On the dual language, where the dual language learners are able to use individual English words to communicate wants or needs, our yearly growth was 33% and our projected growth was 40%. So not quite, but we did well. Not enough to master the skill, but at least we did some type of growth. On the literacy, we'll be able to tell beginning sounds. Our yearly growth was 70% and our projected growth was 50%. On the literacy, we'll be able to name the 26 capital letters. Our yearly growth was 27% and our projected growth was 65%. So next, literacy, DL learners, to show engagement in a recently read English story. Our yearly growth was 66% and our projected growth was 40%. So we did pretty awesome there too. Our cognition, yearly growth was 60% and our projected growth was 65%. Almost, guys, almost. We 5% more and we would have been able to master that particular skill. Our physical development, we had the yearly growth, we had 100%. And our projected growth was 65%. So there you go. And we did awesome in that particular domain. This was great. Those were great efforts from the teachers, from those two teachers that we had. Because like I said, we only had 2 classrooms of 4-year-olds. So that was a tremendous amount of efforts. But we can't close our eyes to the literacy part. It's a very important skill that children need to know to be able to be school ready and to be able to be ready to go into the school district. So, I can never emphasize enough, to look at the data provided to you. And if you have any questions, if you want additional reports being generated for you, just let us know. But it's important for you to start reading the data from the very beginning. Read your school readiness goals, share with the parents, see what school readiness goals that you're going to be working together, which ones are you going to implement, when are you going to implement them, how many times a week you're going to implement them. So start preparing from the very beginning of the school year, and let's not wait until the very end when there's really nothing we can do about it anymore. The school readiness goals for 2021 and 2022 have been finalized. We have aggregated and analyzed all the end of the year results from the assessments, and we have concluded based on the scores that were finalized. The committee has decided to go ahead and keep the same school readiness goals for this coming year. The skills will remain the same. The only thing that has changed are the percentages of the skills that were mastered. If you recall correctly, at the beginning of last year, we had agreed that we were going to agree on a certain projected growth for the year, and that was going to be our goal. And so what the assessments showed at the end of the year was that some of the skills we were able to meet and some of them were not. So the committee has agreed to increase the percentage by 5% only on those school readiness skills that were mastered. So If the skill was mastered and the projected growth last year was 40, so then this year it will be 45. Those are the finalized assessment results, and those are the recommendations for next year. However, they still need to be approved by the Policy Council and the board members. So as of right now, the tentative recommendations will be as followed. So the proposed school readiness recommendations for 2021-2022 are the 0 to 11 months. The projected growth of 5% on all the goals since all the skills were met. So from all the 6 domains, all of them are going to be up 5% more. The 12 to 23 months, the projected growth will increase 5% on 3 of the goals that were met. If you recall correctly, 3 of the 6 domains were met. So only those 3 domains that we met, the projected growth for next year will be upped, will increase 5%. On the 24 to 35 months, the projected growth will increase of 5% on the 4 goals that were met. 4 goals, if I remember correctly, 4 goals were met. So out of those 4 goals, only those goals, the projected growth will increase by 5%. In the 3-year-olds, only 2 goals were met. So the projected growth will increase only on those 2. The rest will remain the same. Remember, all the skills are going to remain the same, except for those percentage growths that are going to increase on those goals that were met. In the 4-year-olds, the projected growth will increase by 5% on the 6 goals that were met. So out of the 9, 6 goals were met. So only those skills, the projected growth will increase 5%. So these are the changes for the 2021-2022 recommended changes, because approval is still pending, but this is what they're going to look like. Okay, anything that you see here in red, those are the percentages that will change for next year. On the 0 to 11 months, the approaches to learning, it will go up to 45%. From 40% to 45%. Social and emotional, it was 45% and now it's going to be 50%. On the language, it was 40%, now it's going to be 45%. On the literacy, it was 55% and now it's going to be 60%. On the physical development, it used to be 60%, now it's going to be 65%. So on the 0 to 11, you have all 6 domains that the projected amount has gone up 5%. If you notice, all the skills are the same. Everything has remained the same except for those projected growths. On the 12 to 23 months, approaches to learning, it was 45%, now it's 50%. On the social emotional, it used to be 50%, now it's 55%. The language will remain at 60%. The literacy will remain at 55%. Cognition from 40% went up to 45%. The physical development remained the same as 50%. So out of the 6 domains, 3 domains have gone up on the projected growth. The 24 to 35 months. Approaches to learning, it went up from 50% to 55%. The social emotional went from 40% to 45%. The language remained the same at 50%. Literacy went from 50% to 55%. Cognition remains the same at 60%. Physical development went up from 50% to 55%. So out of the 6 domains, 4 domains have changed. Only on the projected growth. The skills have remained the same. The 3-year-olds. Out of the 9 domains, only 2 domains have changed. Approaches to learning remains the same as 60%. Social emotional has remained the same at 65%. Language, 55%. Language for the dual language learner remains at 40%. Literacy remains at 60%. Literacy for the language learner, literacy, LN85, remains the same at 60%. Literacy for the dual language learner has gone up from 40% to 45%. Physical cognition remains the same at 60%. Physical development has gone from 40% to 45%. In the 4-year-olds, out of the 9 domains, 6 of them has changed. Is it 6? Yes, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 domains have changed. Approaches to learning has gone from 60% to 65%. Social and emotional from 60% to 65%. The language from 60% to 65%. Language for the dual language learner has remained the same at 40%. Literacy, LN100, has gone up from 55% to 60%. Literacy, LN104, has remained the same at 65%. Literacy for the dual language learner has gone up from 40% to 45%. Cognition has remained the same at 65%, and physical development has gone up from 65% to 70%. So, anything that you see here in red are the only changes that have begun for next year. The skills indicators have remained the same. Nothing else has changed except for the projected growth, and those are the only numbers that you see here in red. Again, only what you see here in red are the recommendations to be changed for next year. And also the recommendations for the school readiness goals are to remain the same as well. So now it's time to quiz your brain. I have 10 questions here that I wanted you to answer for me because I really need to make sure that you were able to understand the training and that everything was kind of like self-explanatory. I don't want any doubts. I want to make sure that you kind of understood all the new procedures, the new requirements. So I know that in your label, on the one that Tony gives you on the label, it probably only has 3 of the answers of the questions that I need for you to answer. But here I want you to answer all 10 questions. I'll go over all of them, and then you will have about maybe 15 minutes, to answer them, and then we'll get back together and then we'll kind of discuss each one of them. So, number 1. Education Resource Community folder is found in Zoom. True or false? Number 2. Language assessment survey must be completed and submitted to education. Niños has 6 school readiness goals established. School readiness goals and the Head Start outcomes are aligned. Conferences and home visits are mandates from Head Start performance standards. Assessments are not used for individualization. Screenings are done within 60 days of enrollment. Zero to 11 months have 7 school readiness skills that need to be mastered by the end of the program year. Sorry. 3-year-olds have 10 school readiness skills that they need to master by the end of the program year. And number 10, school readiness skills are taken directly from the Lab BK assessment. All of these 10 questions are true and false. Like I said, on the label that you'll probably be getting from TTA is probably going to have only 3 of these questions, but I want you to answer all 10 of them, because we will go over all 10 of them whenever we meet up again after this training. So please make sure that you answer each one of them. And it's not just to give you a grade or anything. It's just that I want you to test your brain and see, okay, yes, I did hear this in the training. Yes, she did talk about this, or no, she did not talk about that, or she wasn't clear about this. So I really want you to make sure that it was clear on everything that I said. I'm sorry that I'm a little, it's been, maybe there's some mistakes in a couple of the slides. I wish I would be talking to you instead of recording this, but nevertheless, I just want you to make sure that all the information that has been provided to you has been cleared, and it's clear, so that way, so you can start off the new year with clear expectations. So again, these are the 10 quiz questions that I would want for you to answer. Please answer them, and whenever we get back to meet up after the training, we will go ahead and discuss this. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for an awesome year. We faced many challenges which made us stronger and smarter. We are winners. Please continue your efforts, commitment, dedication, and love for children. You are all very special, people that touch so many young lives. Never forget that. Nevertheless, I found another poem that expresses who teachers are and what their love for teaching really means to many of us. Never doubt yourself. You are very special. Hope you like this little poem, and I hope I don't mess it up, because sometimes when I read it I kind of make a mistake, but here it goes. Teachers. Teachers paint their minds and guide their thoughts, share their achievements and advise their faults. Inspire a love of knowledge and truth as you light the path which leads our youth. For our future brightens with each lesson you teach, each smile you lengthen, each goal you help reach. For the dawn of each poet, each philosopher and king begins with a teacher and the wisdom they bring. So never doubt yourself. You are very special. You are very special people to us, to the children, for so many. Bless your heart. Let's have an awesome year. Thank you.